Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
We've made it a point here on Fronteras to begin to talk about how America is in the middle of a huge demographic shift. At every show I've been able to join with all of you on Thursday evenings, we've tried to bring on guests that highlight these changes that are occurring. The National Hispanic Institute is an organization that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of ever since I was 14 years of age. It is an organization that has been around for over 32 years with the mission of serving the future leadership needs of not only the U.S. Latino-Hispano community, but now the global Latino-Hispano community, as the organization spans over 7 different countries. Every year, the National Hispanic Institute selects the top 3,000 high school students from over 7 different countries. Additionally, it selects the top 2,000 college students from these same countries. And we select the students on the basis of their academic standing, how much involvement they have in the community, with the express purpose to bring these great, bright young minds together and have a discussion about the future of our communities, where we're headed, where we're going, what kind of ideas we can develop. And we're always talking about new thought, new strategies, and new leaders for our future. If you're to look at a high school student at this very moment in time, whether they're in the 9th grade or in the 12th grade, are under 280 weeks away from graduating college. A lot of people usually get shocked at something like that, 280 weeks. How do you fathom something like that? It's quite simple. There's 36 weeks in an academic year. And while many students and families, maybe even parents, may think that there's quite some time between high school and the time that their son or daughter will be in the professional world and attributing to his or her community, it's actually a lot shorter time that stands between a high school student and that very moment. NHI recognizes this, and every year they put together their annual celebración, and it's a huge summit that brings together over 1,000 of their college and high school students from all these various countries to discuss the future of their community. At this very event, it also recognizes their top students every year. I've always made it a point to say that El Paso is one of the biggest and brightest communities of the National Hispanic Institute. Since NHI's inception, there have been more students nationally recognized from this city than any other city with the National Hispanic Institute, with a close second coming from the Valley of Texas. NHI is an organization that was founded in the state of Texas, and so it's natural, only natural, that from the state of Texas would come some of the best and brightest minds. One of the top awards this year is the College Student of the Year. And this year it is being awarded to not 1 but 2 students, and those students both happen to be from our community, El Paso, Las Cruces, Ciudad Juarez area. And I have joining with me today, all the way from his college or university right now, St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas, Arthur Soto-Vasquez, who is this year's 2011 National Hispanic Institute's College Student of the Year. He is a graduate of Eastwood High School here in El Paso. Arthur, thanks for joining us all the way from Austin, Texas. How you doing?
Pretty good, Hector. Thank you for having me.
So, Arthur, pretty big recognition. You're being named the College Student of the Year by the National Hispanic Institute, and it's a recognition that's an international one in scope. We have students that are involved with the Institute, and they're from all over, from 7 different countries. You're from El Paso, and you're being recognized this year. How does receiving that recognition feel?
You know, it's a great honor because I've worked with the NHI since, I was 15 years old in 2007, and I've been able to experience and work with, hundreds of college students, hundreds of high school students, in locations all the way from, New York to Texas, kids from Panama, the Dominican Republic. And to me, it's just a great honor knowing that my peers and those who I work with have given me this honor. I definitely, credit a lot of just working with my peers to be able to bring me up to the level and inspire me to just do good things in the institute.
Tell me a little bit about
so it's as much reflect.
Tell me a little bit about
What's
your
that?
story. I know there's a little bit of a delay between your feed and our feed here, but tell me a little bit about your story with the National Hispanic Institute, Arthur. How did you get involved with NHI, and what has it meant to you over the course of these years? You've been involved with NHI since you were 14.
I was first involved. Traditionally in El Paso, most kids that do become involved are involved through a organization called the Young Leaders Conference, where they train for over a year during their freshman year of high school, and eventually, go to a debate competition among the various other regions of Texas, including the Valley, Austin, San Antonio, and Dallas. I, however, did not participate in that. And so by the time of my sophomore year in high school, at Eastwood High School, I had never been involved with NHI, even though some of my friends had. Mm-hmm. It took a recruiting event, I believe actually conducted by you, Hector, where I was presented with the NHI, what it stood for, some of the potential benefits from joining it. I was a high school freshman high school sophomore, and had very little idea of what I wanted to do in the future, but there was that spark, I think, in there somewhere. And so NHI had a language that appealed to me, and I ran from it from there. I attended the National LDZ in Chicago, Illinois, in 2007, where I was a distinguished House representative and passed legislation. And since then, I've been participating in the NHI every year since. I've staffed, I think on my count, about 13 programs with the Institute. And like I said before, I've worked with tons of great individuals.
To just give people a little bit more of a perspective, I mean, you talk about participating in the LDZ. Every year we will select the top 1,800 approximately high school sophomores and juniors. The National Hispanic Institute will. And those students will be selected on the basis of their academic standing, recommendations from their school, and they unite at a international youth congress of sorts. And the issues are issues about our community, the very issues we discuss on this particular show. Arthur, what was it, you talk about an NHI language that spoke to you. What did that mean to you? What are you talking about precisely? What kind of discussions? What exactly do you mean by that?
I think the LDZ in particular introduced a different type of conversation among us high school sophomores and juniors who were participants. I feel like within our high school environments, we don't entertain questions of really beyond anything of the high school community. We don't within our LDZ environment, it was truly like global questions that we had to ponder, like what is our role going to be in the future? How do we view ourselves? How do we view our neighbors to the south and our neighbors within our own communities? A lot of those questions were the first time I'd ever really entertained those in a serious manner, and at the same time had to provide a response and some sort of proposal to capitalize upon them. It was definitely a immersive experience that was new and challenging, and it was eye-opening because those questions had never been just asked before, and I think that's the value of that program.
What are the biggest issues? I mean, obviously you're involved since you were 16. You've been a part of these discussions about the future of your community, issues that are ongoing in El Paso. You're now a student at St. Ed's. You're being recognized as a College Student of the Year. You're involved with some of these issues. You know what's going on in our community. In your opinion, what are some of the big things going on in our community today that concern particularly people like you and your generation?
The big thing I'm actually looking at right now and doing a lot of research on is how effective really our college education system is in preparing us for the next 20, 30 years of the world that we're going to really inherit as Hispanic Latinos, as even people just in my generation. I've said that here at my time at St. Edward's, I've gained a good, I think, knowledge base about certain issues and certain topics and concepts. But really, I haven't really been given necessarily a great practical foundation in how to apply them and use them creatively. That education for me, I believe, has come through outside sources. I think, though, however, moving forward, we really have to take a very deep look at how college education works in the United States, and if we really are preparing our students for the 21st century instead of the 20th.
I was looking at some statistics about education. Precisely, you're talking about that issue, and it was interesting to me that in the state of Texas, we rank near dead last in education. Not only do we rank near dead last, I was looking at those statistics, and they were talking about how over 70 some odd percent of the state of Texas is currently educated at community colleges, yet the graduation levels of a community college are really low in the state of Texas. Some people put it as low as less than 20% of being able to graduate within 2 to 3 years. What kind of obstacles do you see as a student in terms of your own future when you see that generations like yours are going through some of this this educational status quo?
I think beyond the typical reasons which would be most often given, which would be that just costs are increasingly rising, and the cost of higher education has been rapidly outpacing inflation over the last couple of years. I think a bigger, more fundamental problem that we're approaching, my generation, is how we view college. We view college, I believe, as some sort of credentialing service, as a way to become, better members of society instead of better, more productive people. And I think that's a faulty way to look at an education, and it produces an education system that caters to that type of things. I've looked at my university, for example, and I'm actually involved right now with student government because our university is looking at remodeling certain buildings, specifically our recreation center, and increasing tuition to do so they can attract more students. However, our perspective as students is that we would actually rather see those benefits given directly to us. And so there's always a conflict of those interests. And I think that's the biggest problem facing us right now. That's what we're dealing with.
It's interesting that you say that. I mean, you're pretty much saying the way I'm being educated is not enough. Is that essentially what you're saying? The way I'm being educated is not enough?
I mean, no, I don't think so. I think I've been given, some good knowledge, definitely, a good grasp of concepts, which I definitely have found useful in applying them in various situations. However, I believe for the price that I'm paying, and the price that many of my fellow college students are paying, going into debt and so on, we really have to be seriously asking our universities if we're getting the fundamental skills and creative outlets and opportunities to be successful and utilize them in the 21st century world.
Tell me a little bit, if this is a question that I'm sure a lot of students are currently going through right now. It is application season for college. A lot of students are going through that process right now. I'm sure a lot of parents are dealing with that right now. You managed to be that one student that has come to a level where you're receiving a national level recognition, you're at a top institution. What kind of recommendations do you have for students that are currently going through the process? I mean, you're obviously talking right now about the cost of college and how much it's an issue to you as a current college student. If you had to do the whole process again, what kind of things would you do, and what kind of advice would you give current students going through the process?
I think the biggest advantage of me being here at St. Edward's University in Austin is being able to access a lot of different avenues of opportunities and social capital. I mean, I'm close to the National Hispanic Institute headquarters here in Austin, and I'm close to the Capitol, and close to various other opportunities. I think one definitely important decision in making a college decision is to look at what the opportunities at the city that you're going to live in for 3 or 4 years, or 6 years, 5 years, are going to potentially offer. So whether that may be in El Paso, working in a binational community, in a dual cultural frontier, look at that opportunity. Whether it be in Austin, which is the political capital of Texas, where there's amazing opportunities to do so in that. Communities maybe like Dallas or Houston, which offer health and business opportunities. I think really we have to take a serious advantage of not just the school that you're going to be entering to, but to the community environment of the city that you'll be in. And secondly, I chose a major of political science when I first entered. And now that I've gone through the process and I'm close to graduating, I really wish that I wouldn't have been, funneled directly into a degree program. And honestly, I think if it can be done and if you can make it be done, take as many courses and take as many avenues of thought and inquiry as you can outside of your major, and really take advantage of a full, well-rounded education.
It's really interesting to me, Arthur, that you're mentioning, the college switch of mind. Everybody that goes through college, from what I'm told, out of every 4 students, 3 will change their mind by the time that they're sophomores in college as to what kind of degree plan they would like to have, what kind of major they would like to have. So what you're telling me is you're done with politics? Is that it? You didn't like politics? What happened?
I not necessarily that I don't have an interest in it anymore. I definitely have an interest. However, I feel limiting myself to just one academic subject was essentially limiting. I've developed further interest since I've been here, in graphic design, in communication, in philosophy, in psychology, in a lot of other various things. I've taken theater courses, and while I definitely probably will pursue a political science route, a political route, I don't think that you have to limit yourself just to one major to do so, and a lot of different avenues of study can provide that. Because of my credit situation and the way I entered college, it was very much like, all right, I've chosen my major, I'm going to finish it, I'm not going to change my mind. Yeah. In a way, I think that is potentially good, but also potentially, did me a disservice in some ways. And because of the cost that I was looking at, I wasn't able to really explore fully academic what I would have liked to, I think, in the school environment. However, there's always the opportunity outside.
What is Arthur's next step? I mean, you're obviously doing well in school. You're receiving this international recognition. You're a member of our community. Do we expect to have you back at some point here in El Paso? I mean, what does the next step for Arthur look like? Grad school? I'm not sure. I mean, you're doing all sorts of things right now.
Yeah. The biggest thing I've been looking at, and what I've been really interested in over the next couple of years, is immersing myself in a community outside of the United States, especially within Latin America. So recently, I just finished applying for the Fulbright Scholarship to teach English in Panama, and because of some of the great connections there from NHI, and I believe that's really an environment that I'd like to be in for a year or so. Otherwise, I'd really just like to be in Latin America for a year or so, increase my Spanish language capabilities, cultural competencies from that environment. But I definitely do see myself back in El Paso, as soon as possible. I think there's some great opportunities there that I really can offer, that I can become involved with, and I see myself being involved, at least for sure, in Texas, and I always want to be in El Paso for the rest of my life.
Arthur, Fulbright Scholar, or at least competing to be a Fulbright Scholar right now, the College Student of the Year at an international level with a noted international organization. All of these accolades that are, that you've been able to achieve. What is the biggest reason that you think you're on this path? I mean, what was it about your upbringing here in our community that you feel really got you to the point where you are today?
I mean, I'm going to have to say a couple of traditional things. Obviously, I've had a great upbringing with my family and the love and support of them. I think just growing up in this environment of El Paso gives a lot of us a great, different type of perspective in approaching the American experience. We come from an experience and a growing up that is, dual cultural, and we can move in between the two worlds, and we know how to communicate in both worlds. I think that is something that I definitely highlighted and definitely tried to bring to my university experience, and that I've utilized in my applications to Fulbright and all these other applications. And beyond those two things, my work with the NHI has definitely given me entertaining these big questions and given me almost a global perspective in approaching how I conduct myself in my day-to-day activities.
So when is it that you expect to receive the recognition? I understand it's next week, a big, huge summit in San Antonio, Texas. When do you expect to receive the award next week?
I believe I'll be recognized during a student award ceremony where not just myself, but the hundreds of students who will be competing at Celebración will also be recognized for some of their accomplishments during that week. We'll have students competing in a debate program, freshmen, high school freshmen. They will receive awards based on how they did in the tournament. So we'll have those awards. From the sophomore and junior program, the LDZ, we'll be giving out awards, for accomplishments in that program and creating something new and proposing bold ideas. The same thing will apply for the Collegiate World Series, which will be a program for high school seniors. And actually our new program, the Collegiate Leadership Network, which I'll also be participating in, will award proposals based on ideas of social entrepreneurship that really can be implemented right now in our communities. So I'm definitely looking forward to that, and it should be a great experience for everybody involved.
Well, Arthur, I know you got to get back to your classes. You're in college right now. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us here on our show. And you know what? Congratulations, Arthur. I think you're one of the very big reasons why we have a bright future in our own community, and we wish you the best.
All right, thank you, Hector.
All right, folks. Arthur Soto-Vasquez, student from our community, is at this level. He's competing to be a Fulbright scholar. He's on his way to do big things, and those are the things that seldom get talked about in our community. Some of the local statistics when it comes to education, always paint a very daunting picture. And one of the biggest things that I always like to talk to folks about is the fact that in our own community, we have had the longest running program for over the course of 30 years, or about 32 years, that has had the highest number of nationally recognized students in this community. And that is a very big thing, folks. I want to make sure that people understand our future begins with our students, our teachers, our education system. Right now, we carried out a whole research piece called with the National Hispanic Institute, and what we figured was that out of 2.4 million students, there was approximately a group of about 45,000 of them that were achieving the levels that Arthur has been able to achieve over at St. Edward's, that Paola Payan, who we're going to be inviting to our show here shortly, who is the other college student of the year with the National Hispanic Institute, also from our community, has been able to achieve. It is stories like this that give us the high sign that our community is going in the right direction. On the same note, I want to make sure that people understand and know that next week there will be a summit in San Antonio, Texas. Over 1,000 people expected at Celebración with the National Hispanic Institute, where we will celebrate the achievements of all these bright young minds. Folks can find out more information at nhi-net.org. They can also get involved with the organization by sending an email to info@nhi-net.org and get tickets. Come out, support the students, get involved. There's ways for students to also apply to the programs, just like Arthur was able to apply when he was at Eastwood High School. People can apply online. They could go online if they feel that they have the grades and choose to apply. The National Hispanic Institute is an organization that is affiliated with over 100 colleges and universities, schools like MIT, NYU, Yale, Stanford, Rice, Villanova, the University of Rochester, Southwestern, institutions of that caliber. Every year, the organization will select the top 3,000 high school students from over 7 different countries and not only recognize them, but bring them together to talk about the future of their communities. And as this process takes place, we bring colleges and universities to observe them in action. The biggest difference between the work of the National Hispanic Institute and perhaps the work of other organizations is that most of the funding for these programs is provided for the families at more than 80%. These programs do carry a cost. The students come and participate in the schools, and when they do participate at these schools, at these summits, there is a cost involved, but the families don't have to pay thanks to the work of NHI and all the colleges and universities. They provide about 80% of the cost for the student to participate. So if the student has the grades, if the student is involved, they can certainly be a part of the National Hispanic Institute. All they have to do is apply. And who knows, at some point, Arthur may be able, they may be able to be at Arthur's level. Arthur, thank you very much for joining us again. It's been a pleasure. Any last few words to your community here in El Paso, regarding your recognition this coming week?
I mean, I just like to thank everybody who's been a part of my life here, and I definitely look forward to returning and being a part of the El Paso community for the rest of my life.
All right, folks. Arthur, thanks again for joining us. Folks, if you want to get more information, www.nhi-net.org is the website where you can find out more information not only about Celebración this coming week in San Antonio, where over 1,000 folks are expected to celebrate the achievements of these great, bright young minds, but you can also find out how to get your own child involved, or yourself. If you're watching us and you feel you have the grades, why not get involved with the organization? Folks, thanks again for watching us from all of us here at Fronteras. Have a good evening. I'm Hector H. Lopez.